Impeachment hearings resumed today with the testimony of former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, who was ousted back in May. During her closed-door testimony, she told lawmakers there was a, quote, concerted campaign against her.
Meanwhile, political officer at the Ukrainian embassy, David Holmes, will give closed-door testimony. Holmes reportedly overheard that phone call between President Trump and EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland. Joining us to share expectations for today's testimony is Republican Congressman Westerman of Arkansas. He's a member of the House Committee on Natural Resources and Transportation and Infrastructure. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Certainly. What are you hoping, what questions are you hoping get answered in today's testimony?
Well, actually, I don't think any of the questions I was hoping to get answered will happen in today's testimony because they've still not let any Republican witnesses come before the committee. The questions I want to get answered are from Hunter Biden and others, but unfortunately, Chairman Schiff is leaving them out of the equation. Mm-hmm. So we're just seeing more of the same. You know, they developed this narrative in secret, and now they're out trying to make their case in public. It's like a bad soap opera that it's got a bad script and bad actors.
Yeah, Congressman, I'm curious, from these Republican witnesses, you want to hear from Hunter Biden. What do you want to talk to Hunter Biden about, and what are some of the other witnesses, just lay out for the viewers, they may not understand what the Republicans want to call?
Well, you know, a lot of this started with, it all started with President Trump's phone call, but way before that, Joe Biden was on national TV bragging about using the power of the U.S. government to and the power of foreign aid to get something done in the Ukraine, supposedly on getting a prosecutor fired, while his son was there working, making an enormous amount of money. So, you know, it all started with what Joe Biden did, yet the Democrats are trying to make it like President Trump was the one to do something bad. So let's get Hunter Biden in and find out what was really going on in the Ukraine long before President Trump ever had the phone call with the Ukraine.
Now, in fairness, the U.S. weren't the only ones that wanted that particular prosecutor fired, although I agree with you, and we've been certainly critical of Joe Biden on this show for having his son serve on that board while he was in charge of the Ukrainian portfolio. You know, would you be supportive of anti-corruption law that would keep that kind of appearance of conflict of interest, soft corruption from occurring under a future administration? The president has, of course, also faced criticism from the business activities of his children.
So, you know, there wasn't a big uproar about what Joe Biden said, but at first because, you know, we use foreign aid because we're trying to move U.S. policies in foreign countries. We're trying to use our foreign aid to get outcomes that we want to see gotten. There is corruption, was corruption in the Ukraine. I don't fault Biden for trying to stomp out corruption, but I do fault the Democrats for being hypocritical and blaming President Trump for something that Joe Biden did in the open. President Trump was transparent. He released the transcript of the phone call, which is still the best record that we have on what actually happened, unlike all the hearsay and the second and third-hand conversations that are being brought out in the hearings.
Just to follow up on that, sir, would you support a law that would ban the son of or the children of high government officials from serving in these types of positions?
I mean, you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, but you have to use common sense and rationale. And I mean, it looks very bad what was going on with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. I'm a little bit reluctant to say we need to put blanket laws into effect because we see what happens when we do that. Oftentimes, but I think this was clearly a case of something that shouldn't have happened.
Do you think it also looks bad?
You know, we would like to find out more about it.
Sure.
That's why we would like to see Hunter Biden testify.
Sure, I think that's a reasonable ask. Do you also think that it looks bad for the president to be continuing to profit off of his resort properties, Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. is one example?
Look, the president was in the hotel business long before he was elected president, so I don't see the big issue with that. Again, it's just another thing that Democrats are nitpicking, trying to find anything they can to delegitimize this president. I think you're seeing the truth come out with statements like AOC made yesterday about how if we don't impeach the president, something terrible would happen next year, referring to him getting reelected. You saw Al Green talk about how we have to impeach this president or he'll get reelected. Even the comments about if President Trump is not guilty, he needs to prove it. This is America. That's not the way it works, and this is impeachment. It's a serious offense, and we can't be playing petty politics with it like the Democrats are doing.
Right. I hear you on that, and that wasn't the context of AOC's comments, but we'll leave that for another day. But you're accusing the Democrats of hypocrisy with their charges against the president. But isn't it hypocritical for Republicans to be deeply concerned about Joe Biden's conflicts of interest and alleged corruption, but not concerned about the president appearing to profit off of his position?
The problem I have with Joe Biden is the hypocrisy of it. Nobody was talking about what Joe Biden did or what the actions he took as vice president until they started trying to accuse President Trump of doing something wrong, which I think was much less eventful than what Joe Biden bragged about doing on TV.
Yeah.
It's the hypocrisy of it is what I don't like.
So, Congressman, I also want to ask you about the timeline, sort of been asking every member of Congress on the show. From within the caucus, within the chamber, do you expect a vote by Christmas? That is basically the timeline semi-laid out by the Democratic leadership. Is that what the GOP actually expects? Because it matters very much as to the timing of the trial in the Senate.
You know, I'm hearing those rumors too. I've come to learn not to put too much expectations on what Speaker Pelosi or anybody else over there says. We'll take it as it comes, and we'll have the vote when we have the vote. And I'm not too concerned about when it is, but I am concerned about the things that aren't getting done because we're burning up so much time in the House, and then it's going to take up so much time in the Senate. You know, we want to see things like the trade agreement with Canada and Mexico passed. With all the time we're spending on impeachment, couldn't we find time for a 15-minute vote to fix trade issues between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico that would be good for my constituents and others all across the country? Can't we take some time to talk about the decision the Supreme Court's going to have to make on DACA and how Congress needs to address that? Can't we take some time to address health care and all the other issues? The question is no, because all the oxygen is being sucked out of the air with this impeachment charade.
Well, in fairness, not much was getting done before the impeachment charade, Congressman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you.
Yeah. Next on Rising, 3 people are testifying today before the House impeachment inquiry. Even more are slated to do so next week.
Aaron Mate, journalist and host of The Pushback Show, joins us for the first time to tell us why Dems are falling prey to what he calls Trump's con. That when Rising continues.